Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the second episode of my discussion series where we basically discuss anything I want. I'm doing this really impromptu, like I kind of have no plan for where this is going, but I have an idea and hopefully talking for England gives me a hand in knowing where I'm going. I literally just washed my hair. It's currently drying and I was like, I just need to say what I want to say and just film this and see where it goes. I think that today's episode is going to be kind of based around the idea of like creativity, because a couple of days ago I started, can see a giant bee. He was massive. Anyway, for the past few weeks have wanted to look into the book The Artist's Way, because I feel like I've heard so much about it. It's on my Pinterest a lot, like people doing it. I've obviously seen it like on TikTok and Instagram. I consider myself as someone who is like super creative, but have like real struggle with creating like anything and am hypercritical of what I create. So as I am in my year off, I don't know if I said this in the last video, but basically I was supposed to be studying abroad this year, and me and my sister took all of my things to Spain, and we were moving me in, and I got there, and literally like the weekend that I was there, bear in mind I'd like been to this place before, or this like city before, and I was so excited to go. And obviously I was going to be studying over there, and I was super excited. And I got there, and like I could not have been more anxious, and something felt so wrong like in my body, and I could not pinpoint down what it was. And I basically ended up deciding that it just wasn't the right time for me to be abroad. I was so anxious about it. You know, in your body when something just feels wrong, like that was that experience for me. So I'm now basically in a year off, and I go back to uni for my final year in September. And I really wanted to prioritize like this year coming back to myself and coming back into being creative. And I thought that the Artist's Way would be like a really good way to do that. So I've literally I'm on the first week, and I read the first chapter, and already my brain is like, like it's making me think so much and making me ask myself a lot of questions, which I always think is like a really, really good thing. And I just wanted to talk about it because I feel like I know a lot of people who are super, super creative. And also like, I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like in our generation, the majority of people I know are like super, super creative people. But there is like a struggle with creation and a product of like what's in your mind. Do you know what I mean? It's like I have so many ideas like in my head and never prioritize putting them down on paper or drawing or playing the guitar or whatever it is that like I feel like I want to prioritize. That's basically why I wanted to start The Artist's Way, or like even look into it. And I literally read the introduction, and I was like, I'm here, I want to do this. And it felt like so instinctual for me to want to do it. Like, I think it was really important for me to listen to my body and be like, oh, is this the right time for me to do that? And I let myself sit with it for literally like 2 weeks and be like, oh, like, am I still thinking about it? And I'm still thinking about it. So I've started it. I've literally on week one. Maybe it's a good idea for me to like give a little rundown of what it is if people aren't aware. The Artist's Way is basically a book that you follow, which is like a creative guideline to getting back in touch with yourself and getting back into like creating whatever it is the fuck you want to create. It's not like catered toward one demographic of creators. Like, it's not catered towards architects or writers or actors or whatever. Like, it's for anyone who deems themselves a creator and someone who has like whose life is full of art and idea. It goes on for 12 weeks, and you write morning pages. You're given like tasks throughout the week, and they change by week to week. Right now I can't remember the name of the author and the woman who has like planned out the thing, but this is literally her life. I think she's like a creative, like spiritual coach in a way. I think she just helps people like get back in touch with themselves through their art. Yeah, I just really knew that was something I wanted to do. She gives you tasks throughout the week. You're meant to write morning pages. You're meant to write like 3 pages of literally like brain dumping, like stream of consciousness words. You're not meant to show them to anyone. It's kind of like a journal, but like not like there's not necessarily a plan to what you're writing. You're just meant to write. And I did my first one this morning, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I found myself being like aware and critical of how much I plan, like literally everything, like even my thoughts, which is like a weird thing to think that you do, but I definitely do. I firstly wanted to talk about my notes on the introduction because the introduction like immediately like swept me in. I thought it was a really, really good introduction. I'm also someone who doesn't read a lot of nonfiction, and this is my first nonfiction book in probably like 9 months. Like, I'm a fiction girl through and through. Like, give me a sci-fi fantasy book, you had me like by the cover. But these are obviously just like my notes and what I thought was interesting. Please, if you have any like ideas on what I'm saying, like let me know, because I think like discussions with this are super, super important. But the first point in the introduction that I thought was like so interesting is a discussion that was catered towards people who want to like be a part of the artist's way and like do the journey. And I think she was kind of like demonstrating like why this would be helpful for you if you act in this way. And one of the ways, like literally in quotation marks, I've been writing quotes down, I'm such an English student. You're creative in spasms, creative as an act of will and ego, creative on behalf of others, creative, yes, but in spurts. And it really got me thinking about how whenever like I am creative or like going through a phase of like wanting to make something, I do it really intensely but for a really short amount of time. And I think, as she like discussed in her book, like a lack of creativity is just like an emotional blockage. And I spoke about this in my last video about how like anxiety and depression are like really fundamental like to stopping like creative flow. And it just got me thinking about how like I deem myself as a really creative person but struggle to like pinpoint what that creativity is, and B, why I'm unable to create when it's something I love to do like so much. And yeah, I literally wrote down, it's just like how that's how my creativity process is now. It's not free flowing, which is the aim, because when I look at my future and what I want, I just want to be able to live a life where I'm like, I wake up and paint, and I wake up and sing, and I wake up and I'm directing, or literally whatever, and it's all like emotionally channeled and authentic. And being creative in like bursts and spasms is, it literally feels there's a push and pull sensation going on, which I think is really, really interesting. She also really interestingly used the word crucifixion, and it got me thinking about how in a way art is a sacrifice and how it can be used as a sacrifice rather than like a designated choice. I think a big thing for me and a struggle as to why I'm not always like prioritizing creative action is because it's the like the fear of being perceived. Like even with this, it's like, oh, like I'm obviously posting online, anyone can see it. Once you give something to somebody else, it kind of stops being yours, even if you are authentically doing it for you. And I think that when creativity is driven by emotion, that can really create a vulnerable space. And if you don't feel safe enough within yourself, then why would you put yourself in that environment? So it's completely valid when people are stopping like creativity. But if that is who you are at your core, then you are kind of like inhibiting like your own emotional flow. You know what I mean? Like, I hope what I'm saying, I hope I'm making sense, because in my brain it makes sense, but I hope it makes sense on camera, okay? When I edit this, we'll see. And I hope I pronounced this geezer's name right. Pierre Mondrian said, and she used this quote like within the introduction. It said, "The position of the artist is humble. He is essentially a channel." And I was just like, oh, so like artists are just energetic conduits for emotions. Art is for the living. It brings something out in people and evokes feeling. Then it's like, what is the artist really creating for? Like, is the artist creating to channel for themselves, or is there always kind of like a desire to be seen through your art? Moving on. So I did that on the 4th of April, and then on the 6th, I was half asleep taking notes because I couldn't get my mind off of like doing this. And I was like, right, I want to be able to start my morning pages tomorrow, i.e. today for me. The next bit is she goes on to discussing the basic principles, and I believe there are 10. And 3 really stood out to me. I'll move on to those in a sec. And I literally love this. Like, I think one of the main reasons why I was like, oh, I really want to do this, is because she was so early on, she was so apparent about like creativity as the connection to the inner child. And for me, I feel like this year is, or like this time off, because I've not been at uni like since the last June or May, around then. This time away has really been my time to reconnect with little me. And she literally was talking about how creativity is the inner child. Like the act of creation is so youthful and fun and joyful and bright and healing for adults who want to connect with themselves again, because all children do is learn through play and creation. So why can't adults, you know? And then a big through line of this course, I guess, a big through line of this course is the fact that you don't have to have a specific like spiritual belief system. You don't have to follow like a specific religion or a specific set of principles. She's made it very applicable to like all religions and stuff, which I think is really, really good. And she talks about our innate connection to something else. She does use the word God, but she uses the word God as in creativity itself. Like getting you back in touch with God is creativity and like your core and who you are, you know? And she spoke about how God is a creator and a creator is an artist. And I remember being like, whoa, that's crazy. Because like I just don't think that's something you can dispute. Like depending on whatever you believe, this world didn't exist once and now exists. It's a beautiful quote unquote creation. If you believe a specific God has created that, then that God in a sense is an artist. And that also means that you as an individual who has been made and created, whether you believe that's by a God or your parents or whatever, is a conduit of that creation and art. And I was like, that is like the most beautiful thing I've ever read. Then I went on to reading like the list of the basic principles, and the first one that really stuck out to me was number 4, and it said, we are ourselves creations, and we in turn are meant to continue creativity by being creative. Tell me if that's a lie. Exactly. Like, I don't really know how you're meant to dispute that. I think if you are really adamant that you're not a creative person, then there's some deep emotional blockage going on. And she frequently talks about that. It's like a separation from art, and creation is a separation from the self. And the causes of that vary. But I think that emotion is art and art is emotion. And blocking of one blocks off the other. So they kind of go hand in hand. The second one was number 6. And it said, the refusal to be creative is self-will and is counter to our nature. And I think of this all the time. It's like children, all they do is create. And it's like, when did we stop that? Like, when did we begin to, as a society, to like separate ourselves from making stuff and then really being hypercritical of what we create? Because I think a big thing for me is like, for example, last year at uni, I did life drawing. I was going to be really mean to myself then. I can draw, but I'm not the best. Okay, you catch my drift. Like I really enjoy doing it. I think with a load of practice, I could probably be pretty good. But in this present moment, I do struggle quite a bit. But obviously, drawing is a skill that you develop over time. And I remember doing it and like pushing myself to it and being like, I am in a room full of people who I am assuming are really, really good at this thing. And because I don't feel like I'm good enough, maybe I shouldn't do it. And I remember that thought like came into my head and I was like, bro, what the fuck? A, no one cared. B, everyone's smart at me. And C, I'm drawing someone who's naked. Like that is scarier than me being so concerned about whether I've got the shape of this old man's back correctly. Like no one is looking at the art after. You don't, some people show it, but you don't have to. And my friend who invited me to life drawing was like, honestly, you're not bad. And I remember latching onto the you're not bad, you're not bad, you're not bad, and going again. And I loved it. And I did it like pretty frequently throughout my second year at uni. And it allowed me to recognize that like it's really, really hard, but listening to the negative voice and choosing to depend on that is a choice that I have. And I think when you're starting off or restarting, because we are creation, so do we ever really stop creating? Probably not. But when you're starting off, you just can't be judgmental of yourself because it's only the beginning. The final one that like really stuck out to me was our creative dreams and yearnings come from a divine source. As we move toward our dreams, we move towards our divinity. And I just thought that was so pretty. And I do really think that doing what you want to do gets you so much closer to who you really are. And I think listening to yourself is the literal key to fulfilling your dreams, because she uses a lot of like, because this is her career, she uses a lot of her like clients in a ways experiences, and she's worked with so many people who have lived their lives repressing their creative pursuits or fulfilling their creative pursuits through others and working for people who are creative rather than creating themselves. And that in turn is so like disrespectful to yourself. And I think it's just really sad. And I feel like I've had these thoughts before because I have had this dream since I was probably 3 or 4 years old of being an actress in theatre. I've always wanted to do it. I remember always singing at home, and I was the eccentric daughter. I have an older sister, and I was the one who was loud, you know what I mean, like taking up space. And I've always wanted to be a performer. And as I've grown up, that dream has literally not changed. Like I'm still like, I will die happy if someone, like one person witnesses me in the West End. Like I can evaporate if that happens, and you'll never have to see me again. And I found myself as I grew up, even now in like a time of stillness of my life, because obviously I'm in a year off. I'm not necessarily doing the norm for my age, even if it's the right thing for me. Like I didn't do what I thought I was going to do, and I wasn't able to go back to uni because it was too late for me to enroll. So I feel like I've kind of gone against the grain a little bit in what is societally like appropriate or deemed appropriate. And I found myself in this year off being so doubtful of myself that I started doubting who I know I am and being like, oh, maybe you're gonna have to do something else. And that is just the epitome of what she considers a block. And it's really weird that I'm doing this because I've been talking about this in therapy recently too. It's like the fact that there's so much that I want to do, but I can never like get around to doing it, and I don't know what's holding me back. Like I've got all this free time, and then because I'm not doing what I want to do, I start questioning who I am and if I'm being authentic, and authenticity is really, really important to me. And then it's a vicious cycle of like, in a way, like self-harm, because it's not loving. Yeah, I don't know. It just really highlighted to me how important it is to remember that our creativity is what bridges the gap not only to ourselves but to like the world around us. Because like there's no better feeling than watching someone love what they do and do it well in an art form. Like when you watch someone sing really well, or a really good film, or an amazing play, or if you go to an art gallery and just stare at a painting and you're like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Like there's literally nothing better. And it's the fact that like I started this 2 days ago and I've already almost talked for half an hour, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm obviously meant to be doing this because it's really got me thinking. Anyway, she then goes on to talk about what to expect, and she literally goes through like phases, like it's like a grief cycle of what to expect throughout the 12-week course. Because when you deep it, like 12 weeks of actively acting every day towards maybe a new / old version of you is like quite a long time to be conscious of you doing it, you know? Like I feel like when you're in therapy, it's like, oh, like I have a session once a week, and then you look back and you're like, I've been doing this for 6 fucking months and all I've done is change this whole time. But you don't process the shifting as it happens. Whereas because this process has like a designated amount of time, I feel like I'm so aware of like my progress or how I should be progressing, even though there's no guideline as to what you should end up being like she makes that very clear. Like there's there's no one you should be at the end of this. There's no specific goal. It's just a space to allow you to feel safe with connecting with yourself. And I think that is what is really, really important and really inviting. Anyway, as I was saying, she goes on to talk about what to expect. She literally says that it's going to be a bonjour. She goes on to say that it's going to be emotionally tumultuous. And I remember being like, do I need that for myself right now? And then, I don't know, something inside of me literally just said, when else do you want to do this? Because I think the fact that I was doubting this experience just demonstrates how much I need it. Because it's like, I'm not drawing and I'm not writing and I'm not singing that much and I'm not playing the guitar that much, but I really want to. And I'm being given an opportunity to help myself, connect with myself to do those things. And I'm fearful of it. She said that there's going to be multiple points of doubt and a possible desire to resist and go back to what once was. And because of that, there is a grieving process. Obviously, there's going to be an increased level of understanding. She also said when she was discussing the grieving process that there's an element of withdrawal. And she said, obviously, when you think about withdrawal, you think of like a substance. But in this instance, she said that we are the substance we withdraw to and from. So it's the mourning of the self that we have abandoned. And I remember being like, that is so relevant to me, because my therapist says that to me pretty much weekly. She literally will be like, we are going back to the you that you were, because somewhere you've dropped her off and not picked her up. She also said in this like portion of the chapter that a big reason as to why we have creative blockages is because we squander our own creative energies by investing in the lives of others. And I thought that was so interesting that even subconsciously, if you don't allow yourself to take up enough space and you fill that with others, then obviously you're gonna block off your creativity and who you are. And oh my god, she said the nicest quote, which I literally I was like, oh. She said that, because basically she was saying that it's going to be emotionally tumultuous, and then afterwards she said, our tears prepare the ground for our future growth. And I was like, that is literally like the nicest quote, because this may be a surprise to some of my friends, because I come across as someone who is like really emotionally available for other people, but I do really struggle to be there for myself, and it's something I'm currently in the process of learning to do. And I'm also loving that process, even though it is really, really tricky. But I struggle to cry about things that are really like valid for me to cry about, like people I've lost or experiences where I've been really, really hurt in my life. And the thought that our own tears allow us to energetically like feed ourselves to grow more is just the most beautiful thought. And then she goes on to talk about the morning pages and what they are, and it's basically 3 pages of brain dumping every day. She considers it a primary tool of creative recovery. You're not meant to reread them until like week 8, apparently. And I think that could be because you could want to change them. And I feel like I could be someone who would do that. Like sometimes I'll be rereading my journal and I'll get so judgmental of myself. But that was how I was feeling in 2022. And a bitch can feel however she wanted to in 2022. Do you know what I mean? Just because I don't feel the same way now doesn't mean it wasn't valid for me to feel that way then. One of the biggest parts of this book is she talks about the censor, and the censor is what she capitalizes as like a literal, like she personifies this voice that we all have in our heads, which is like the voice that stops us from taking up space and experiencing what we want to experience. It's basically like the belittling voice that discredits you. And she says that it's super, super important that you understand that the censor is not your truth. It's important to listen to it because it's telling you things, but what it's saying and prohibiting you from isn't your truth. So the morning pages teach you that your mood doesn't always matter, which I thought was really, really interesting, because from my interpretation, what I think she means by that is like, not all artists create in a space of joy and like contentment. Like some of the best art comes out of suffering, and she wants us to reach a point where we are creating in all manners of experience. She says that our logic brain is the survival brain, whereas the creativity brain is the living brain. And I thought that was so nice, because I think that our society is so desperate to be logical and discredit emotion from literally everything. And I loved the way that she put this, and she mentioned how the censor craves safety rather than exploration, and it just links back to what she was talking about earlier about the inner child. Like the censor is the inner child voice that is trying its best, her best for me, to keep me safe. And it's just all about reiterating that I've got it under the bag now. It's all about reiterating that I'm in control now and allowing myself to come into a space of safe creativity. Then you do an artist date every week. There are two non-negotiables. You have to do the morning pages and you have to do an artist date. An artist date is literally consists of you taking yourself out to do something that you yourself really, really love to do for you, and you can't take anyone with you. And she said that an avoidance of artist dates is a fear of self-intimacy. I'm going to try my best to be intimate with myself. And then you have to write yourself a contract, which I signed, obviously, and I wrote it down. I wrote all of this down because I personally believe that if I'm able to write it like all out by hand rather than like just doing it like on my laptop, then it feels more real. And I think the fact that something is tangible, like in this book, in like 20 years' time, I'm going to be so grateful that I can look back on it. Because imagine looking back at a PDF rather than a book you wrote when you were 21. This is just like, what's the word? Can someone give me a dictionary? It is priceless. My brain said worthless. Obviously, I'm only on week 1. Basically, week 1 is all about recovering a sense of safety. Like, that is the literal title of week 1. One of the first quotes, and I literally like wrote the quote down, and the only thing I said was good God. And it's Carl Jung. He said that nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment and especially on their children than the unlived life of the parent. Bruh. So basically, psychologically, nothing is more important than the things your parents didn't want to do and them living in a logic brain rather than a creative brain. I do think that is a very 20th and 21st century parental experience. It also demonstrates that, and which I love, I think it's so important, that our parents have emotional blockages too. And it's honoring that and respecting that, but not having to live your own life within those restraints and cages. She talked about how being creative in this time period is very difficult because art is viewed as the creative fluff surrounding real life rather than the essence of life itself. Because when historians look back on periods of history, like some of the most important things isn't the logic, it's the art and the literature. Like those are the landmarks of human existence, and that's what we look for. And she used another quote, which I was talking to my mom about today on a dog walk actually, and I just thought it was so like realistic. Ben Shan, I hope I said that right, said that I believe that if it were left to artists to choose their own labels, most would choose none. And I think that is because labeling is restrictive. We like set ourselves in these labels rather than just allowing ourselves to live authentically. And you can imagine as a free-flowing artist, which is how I envision my future to be, that can be really suffocating. And you know earlier how I was talking about how she dealt with a lot of people who had been living their creative lives through others. She talks about them as the shadow artists, and those are artists that are ignorant of their true identity. They gravitate towards artists, but their self-worth is low, so they don't feel worthy of the title of artist, and the careers they choose are usually in parallel to their art. Like you could be a talent agent rather than the talent, or you own an art gallery rather than creating art, that type of thing, which I just thought was so interesting because something I myself have experienced is really struggling to label myself as what I'm doing. Like I remember doing a play at uni in second year, and my dear friend who was also the director called us actors, and I remember being like, oh my god, I am, but I'm not. Because obviously I think you put like this art that you love so much on such a high pedestal that it's never like within your grasp, but connecting with yourself allows you to reach it. And something she said that I really loved is that it takes nurturing to be an artist and to create art. Like the creation of art itself is obviously a skill that needs nurturing, but to become the artist is all about nurturing of yourself and who you have been. I think it's very easy to get lost and put off with the skill that needs to be acquired to create. But the fact that it connects you to yourself for me is really attractive because I just really do think we're here to live authentically, and I want to know who I am and accept who I am. One thing she also said, which had me tweaking, was that you have to be willing to be a bad artist and permit yourself to be a beginner. When she's written it down, I'm like, well, like I'm obviously going to be shit at the beginning. Like, of course, why wouldn't I be? But that is hard. Like allowing yourself to, I think as someone who strives to do well in literally everything, which is obviously such a heavy toll and responsibility, but it is something that I do. It's really hard to think of myself as being in the wrong or being bad at something. I feel like that discredits who I am, even though it connects me closer to who I am, because I'm never always right and I'm not perfect and I'm a human being just existing as best as I can. She also said, which I thought was so interesting, that the fear of the unknown within creativity is because there's safety in the creative blockage, because you kind of know what you're expecting. She also wrote down a list of reservations, and I thought that one of them was so interesting that she had witnessed, was that people feared their sexuality changing due to their creative exploration. And that was for all sides of the spectrum. Like, that meant from being straight to gay, and gay people feared being straight and going against who they thought they were, which I just thought was so interesting, how society has deemed creativity as something that is so separate from the self and could actually be really dangerous for who you are, because it's not. And then she went on to talk about the importance of positive affirmations, which I love anyway, and I believe that is one of the tasks of the first week, which is where I'm up to. I don't even know what advice, if any, I'm trying to give with this episode, but I do really hope that you can prioritize making something for yourself, because I think that even when you do like a degree that's creative, it's still in service of something, whether that be your own degree. It's still like being graded, which marks it against a criteria, and I don't think that art is meant to be viewed in that way. Art is something that evokes emotion and connects us to ourselves and other people, rather than disconnects us from one another. So all I hope is that you are able to find a place where you can draw something really shit and be okay with it, because that's where I'm trying to get to this week. Like, I literally think, like, tomorrow I am gonna sit my ass down on a park bench and try and draw the nearest tree. Like, why not? Why can't something I do not be great? And why can't something I do not be great and I love it anyway? I hope that was concise, and if it wasn't, that's also okay. I'm so grateful for watching the video. I'm also really grateful for all the views that I had in the previous one. It was really, really fun to do. I'm really excited for the future of this discussion. I also wanted to say that I'm not sure what this channel is going to look like. I wanted a discussion series so that I literally could talk about whatever I wanted to learn about, was interested in, was fixated on, and I wanted it to be a safe space for other people to do those things too, because whether or not you realize it, watching a video is allowing yourself to like enjoy and feel safe in another environment, you know, but you've done that. And I just wanted to just enjoy this process of existing as being 21 and documenting it. So I'm really, really grateful that you've decided to join me for however long that may be. If you feel so inclined to, please give this video a like, subscribe, and I will see you all very soon. Lots of love to you all, and I'll see you next week. Bye guys.